Hi, this is Chris Haig with Attorney Law Magazine. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Antonio Romanucci. Tony, you're a well-known personal injury attorney and wrongful death attorney. What are some of the things that brought you to that field?
Well, it really wasn't one moment that I realized that I wanted to do this kind of law. I think it really started when I was in the public defender's office, and there I was charged with representing indigent people. And it really was an eye-opener. It was an awakening at that time to realize that there are so many people who are vulnerable, who don't have the means to represent themselves in extremely troubling situations, because there it's criminal work. And I was a young attorney, and my mornings would be spent in what they call the bullpen. The deputy sheriff would open up literally the jailhouse door, and I'd go in there and I would start my morning interviews with all the people who had been arrested either overnight or who had bond hearings. And over time, I really began to appreciate not my job, but what my responsibility was to these people, that they needed representation when they could not afford it. Well, that's the same thing with personal injury, because you're representing people typically who cannot afford an attorney, but who are demanding justice, who need their rights represented. And that's what a personal injury lawyer can do, is help those who are in most need, who are most vulnerable, especially children, which I have a passion about. And that's kind of how I saw my transition from the criminal field into the personal injury field.
Tony, it's obvious that you're passionate about what you do. What is it that's given you that passion?
What I feel most passionate about my work is the actual contact that I have with clients. I mean, to me, it's very, very significant that I am able to represent somebody. I take that as a very, very honorable thing that I can do, is to have the ability to represent somebody. So when a client comes into our office because of a catastrophic event, one that occurred, because of somebody else's fault, and they're here seeking, justice and maximum, compensation, I know it's my job to help them. And it's that moment when you are able to help them, the look on their face when you are able to give them something that they thought they would never get back, all the turmoil that they've gone through in their home because of them not being able to work, or because they've had to lose their jobs because of the horrible thing that happened in their life. When you're able to restore something in someone's life, and then they give you that love back, the love that you gave into helping their case, it's a very significant moment, and that's where my passion comes from, and that's where my passion continues on to the next case.
Tony, can you tell us, was there a single person who had the greatest impact on your career?
The person who had the greatest impact on my career is not just one person, but I think I can distill it down to one person. Clearly, it starts with my family, especially my father, who was the one who strongly suggested and pushed me into law school, because he saw something in me that I never saw. So clearly, I have to give a lot of credit to him. And then, I look at, an organization that I became part of as a young attorney, the Justinian Society of Lawyers. That was a group of lawyers who really took me under their wing. They mentored me, they taught me, they showed me a lot of things about how to be a lawyer, how to practice as a lawyer, and they've become lifelong friends. And I don't think I could be here today if it wasn't without the Justinian Society and those members. And then, of course, there's my partner, Blandin. He and I have had a great 18-year run so far here at Romanucci and Blandin. But if there's one person who I'm going to say who's had a significant impact on my career, I'm going to talk about, he was our presiding judge here in Cook County, our chief judge. His name was Donald O'Connell. He's retired from being a judge, but when I was a young attorney and I would be practicing in front of Judge O'Connell, he also kind of took me a little bit under his wing and mentorship. And there were times when I would bring cases before him and they couldn't be resolved. And one time he told me, "Tony, this case is not going to settle." He said, "Go try it." And we did. And it resulted in a quite significant verdict. And from that time on, I realized what he was really telling me. He was telling me, go do your work as a lawyer and good things will happen. And I've always had a great deal of respect for the man. I still do. When I see him, I pay a tremendous amount of homage to him because he's a good person, and I don't think we've ever forgotten each other.
Tony, share with us a moment in your practice that you felt most proud.
Yes, I have felt very proud. I've had several, courtroom moments where you're not sure where the direction of the case is going. But then as an attorney, you have that moment where you know you have changed the direction of the case. Where those 12 people sitting in the box, the jurors, where you know now you have their attention in a different way than you had their attention the moment before, the one moment where you've changed the entire direction of the case. And the reason, I can say those are proud moments is because clearly I feel those were moments where we've changed the direction of the case in favor of our client that we're representing. And ultimately, all of those moments resulted in a win for our clients. But when that moment occurs, you've changed the direction of the case. And one of those special moments in my mind was when I was representing a young boy, 10 years old. He was the victim of medical malpractice. His name was Jake. And Jake had a lot of problems. He was born with a defective heart. Because of the malpractice that occurred when the doctors were treating his defective heart, his one leg had to be amputated. And because of when the leg was amputated, he developed clotting problems. He suffered a stroke. On the opposite side, his leg was amputated. So you can imagine Jake was a boy who was not normal like all little boys, but he did everything he could to be normal. He was one of the strongest little kids you've ever seen, and he wanted to be just like everybody else, and nobody was going to tell him what he couldn't do. So we had to make a decision during trial is how to present Jake to the jury in a very dignified manner for Jake, because even though he was 10, he had a big ego. He had a lot of dignity. And so we decided that we were going to have a play date with Jake in the courtroom.
That's great.
And we brought some toys. As a matter of fact, I have one of them here because I always keep this here. This is a blue styrofoam ball that I used to play with Jake in the courtroom. And we brought some books to the courtroom, and I brought Jake in the courtroom. I took my jacket off, sat down on the ground with him, and we had a play date. For about 10 or 15 minutes, he and I played like we were on the school ground, and we just did whatever we wanted to. We talked. There was no question and answer. I did ask him one question, I remember, about his sister, and he told me, "Oh, I don't like my sister." And that kind of brought the house down, because what brother really, really loves his sister until they get older? And that was the moment where things changed. But the most compelling moment for me was once Jake left the courtroom, the jury was pretty much in tears, and so was I. I had to go in the corner and pretend I was looking at my briefcase and looking at files so I could finish my own crying until I was done, and then I could be normal again myself.
Tony, you've achieved many successes, both for your clients and your practice. Is there anything that remains elusive?
I think the one thing that remains elusive for me, and it will happen, I have no doubt it will, I want to be able to represent somebody on what I'll call the legacy case, where we can make policy and cultural change on behalf of a population or our country because of what we were able to do for somebody who walked in our door seeking that justice, seeking to right that wrong. That's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to have that legacy case in order so that not only my children, but anybody can remember that we were the ones that made that change that goes down in history. You know, there's a reason why my favorite movies in life are Gladiator, Braveheart, 300, Saving Private Ryan. I like to feel inspired, and I feel inspired every single time I represent somebody. And I want that inspiration to continue on long after I'm gone.